Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. My wife tattooed independent girl on her shoulder while draining every ounce of love, trust, and money I gave without hesitation. So, I cut her off from all of it and watched her world collapse piece by piece. I'm Dean, 41. I've been working as a civil engineer for the same firm for 15 years. I started fresh out of college, green and eager, and clawed my way up to project manager. I'm not rolling in cash, but I earn enough to live comfortably. Comfortably enough that Jocelyn never had to worry about rent, bills, groceries, or anything, really. She used to say, "You're the kind of man who builds a life." I believed her. We met in college, sophomore year. She was into graphic design back then, wore thrift store jackets, and always carried a sketchpad. I was already knee-deep in calculus and soil mechanics, with no time for nonsense. But she had a laugh that cut through the gray of my days. We got married a year after graduation, packed everything we owned into a used Toyota, and moved to Colorado to start fresh. 4-bedroom house, quiet suburb near Denver, big maple tree in the yard. We tried for kids, God knows we tried, but after years of doctor visits and heartbreak, we made peace with it. Just wasn't in the cards. Still, I thought we had something solid. Maybe not perfect, but strong. We hiked the Rockies on weekends, vacationed twice a year, nothing flashy, but enough to unplug. Hosted friends for dinner, drank wine on the back porch, talked about future renovations or retirement spots. A stable life. A happy one. At least, that's what I thought. Then things started shifting. Subtly at first. Anyway, back to that night. It was just past 1 a.m. when she stumbled in, loud in all the wrong ways. The front door creaked, slow and deliberate, followed by the awkward clack of heels trying not to clack. I heard her keys fumble and clatter onto the granite countertop in the kitchen. Then a bump. Must have been the hallway table she always said was too close to the wall. I kept my eyes shut, breathing slow, steady, pretending. But I wasn't asleep. She finally slipped into bed. That's when the smell hit, thick and deliberate. Expensive perfume I didn't recognize, overlaid with a cologne that damn sure wasn't mine. It had that sharp, woody edge. Rich. Intimate. Like it had been on her skin for hours. I stared at the ceiling. This wasn't the first time. It was the fourth night this month she'd come back past midnight, each time with a new excuse. "Sorry, babe. Late night marketing dinner. You know how Sarah loves to talk." Or, "Melissa dragged me out for drinks." She's going through that breakup. I couldn't say no. I played along. I didn't press, not at first. But each time she walked through that door, something in me twisted tighter. And tonight, it snapped. I didn't say anything. Just rolled over, back to her, letting silence speak. She didn't try to fill it. Didn't even reach for me. I lay there awake, eyes wide open, listening to the whir of the ceiling fan and the occasional car hum outside. The world went on, pretending everything was normal. But inside I knew. Somewhere along the way, the woman I married, the woman who used to trace blueprints with me just to feel involved, had started becoming a stranger. In the morning light, things didn't look any better. In fact, they looked worse. I stood in the kitchen, waiting for the coffee maker to finish sputtering through its cycle, the rich smell doing nothing to calm the pit of dread tightening in my stomach. I stared at the dark liquid slowly filling the carafe and ran through scenarios in my head like mental blueprints, methodically, deliberately. Was she cheating? Having some kind of midlife crisis? Should I confront her now or wait? I'm an engineer. I don't jump to conclusions. I like evidence. I like structure. A problem with data is a problem I can solve. But marriages aren't built on logic alone. They're unpredictable, emotional constructs with no control variables. You think you've laid the foundation right, followed the plans, but something still shifts beneath it. Cracks form. I wasn't ready to start tearing down the house. Not yet. From the hallway, I heard the creak of the bedroom door, then the soft shuffle of bare feet. She was up. I knew her routine. She always headed for the shower first. As the water kicked on, I glanced over at the purse she'd tossed on the counter. I hesitated. We never snooped. Ever. We always respected each other's space. But this didn't feel like privacy anymore. It felt like secrecy. I reached for the bag. Inside, beneath a tangle of receipts and lip balm, I found one that made my heart sink. A restaurant downtown I'd never heard of. The receipt said dinner for two. $237. Date stamped. Yesterday. I stared at the numbers like they might rearrange themselves into something less damning. But they didn't. We shared a joint credit card, and I would have seen a charge like that. Had she used a separate card? One I didn't know about? I tucked the receipt back carefully, pulse racing. Then something else caught my eye, a business card. Thick black print on matte paper. Inked sole. A tattoo studio. On the back, scribbled in blue ink, was an appointment time, yesterday afternoon. A tattoo? Jocelyn had always sworn she'd never get one. Said the idea of a needle freaked her out. Why would I choose to be in pain on purpose, she used to say. I stood there staring at that little card like it might explain something. Anything. Then I heard the water shut off. A moment later, she walked into the kitchen in a low-cut tank top I'd never seen before, and I saw it. Bold, cursive letters inked just below her collarbone. Fresh. Red. Swollen. The skin around it still looked angry. Independent girl. The words punched me in the chest. What the hell is that? I blurted, my voice sharper than I intended. She glanced down like she'd forgotten it was there. Then, she touched it lightly, almost lovingly. Her lips curled into a smirk. You like it, she said. Got it yesterday. Inked Soul, downtown. I couldn't hide the disbelief in my voice. That's permanent. Her face hardened in an instant. I don't need your permission, Dean. This is about who I am now. An independent girl. I put my coffee down slowly, trying to keep my hands from shaking. And who exactly were you before? I asked, my voice low, controlled. She didn't hesitate. Someone who lived by your boring rules. Your predictable schedule. Your middle-class expectations. She turned away, reaching for a mug. And then, casually, like we weren't standing on the edge of something breaking, she poured herself coffee. I'm about to turn 40, she said, almost like it was a diagnosis. I need to rediscover myself before I'm too old and it's too late. That's where it all spiraled. Suddenly, everything we had, the life we built brick by brick, was recast as some kind of cage. The house we'd saved for, the retirement plan we'd worked on together, the dinners in, the quiet Sundays with coffee and a crossword, all of it was, in her words, a beige prison of mediocrity. She didn't say it with anger. She said it like she'd solved a puzzle, like some epiphany had hit her in the produce aisle. And me? I went from Dean, the steady one, to Dean, the guy who ruined her spontaneity. My commitment to our future became proof that I was basic, uninspired, worse, controlling. Yeah, controlling. That's me. The guy who watched in silence as our joint account bled dry, dinner charges, Uber rides, boutique store receipts. All while she found herself. I asked her one night, genuinely trying to understand, if you felt this way, why didn't you talk to me about it? Her expression tightened, not with guilt, but with amusement. She laughed. Actually laughed at me. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Planning changes. Everything with you has to be scheduled, organized, reviewed like a project proposal. Sometimes life isn't about planning, Dean. It's about feeling something, experiencing something. I swallowed the hurt and kept my voice level. And what exactly are you experiencing lately? Her eyes darted toward the hallway. She grabbed her purse like it was a lifeline. I'm going to be late for work, she said. We can talk about this later. But of course, we didn't. That became her new pattern. She'd come home after I was asleep and leave before I woke up. On weekends, she'd be home in body, but not in spirit. Her presence was a wall of silence, occasionally punctured by plans with friends I'd never heard of. Saturday came. Mitch dropped by to watch the game. I opened the door, and he gave me one look. You look like crap, man. What's going on? I hesitated. I hadn't told anyone yet. Saying it out loud made it more real. But something about the way Mitch asked, no judgment, just concern, made it spill out. I told him everything. The late nights. The tattoo. The way Jocelyn had changed into someone I barely recognized. Mitch listened, nodded slowly. Rosalie went through something like this last year, he said, referring to his wife. Didn't go as far as an affair or anything, but it was that same, I don't know, identity crisis. I'm turning 40, what have I done with my life thing. I sighed. I just never thought Jocelyn would be that type. Mitch leaned forward. Listen, my cousin went through this too, with his wife. Started with a tattoo, then new friends. Then he found out she was sleeping with her CrossFit instructor. I felt my throat close up. You think she's cheating? I asked. Mitch didn't answer. He just looked at me, sympathetically. I think you need to find out what's going on, Mitch said, his voice low but firm. Before she empties your bank accounts. I shrugged it off at the time, but part of me knew he was right. The first real gut punch came a few days later, a notification on my phone. $2,780 withdrawn from our joint account. My chest tightened. I was in the middle of reviewing blueprints at work, but I couldn't focus after that. I texted her. No response. When I got home, I waited until she was pouring herself a glass of wine. What was the $2,780 for? I asked, keeping my tone calm. She shrugged like it was no big deal. Wardrobe refresh, she said casually. New chapter, new me. Don't you think we should discuss purchases that big? I asked, trying to keep the frustration from creeping into my voice. Jocelyn rolled her eyes. I didn't realize I needed permission to buy clothes. It's not about permission, Jocelyn, I said, setting my bag down on the kitchen chair. It's about respect. Partnership. What if I just went out and spent 3 grand without talking to you first? You'd never do that, she snapped. Because you're too afraid to live. That one hit me harder than I expected. I stared at her. I wasn't afraid to live, I said slowly. I was responsible. There's a difference. I worked hard so we could have security. Options. Since when is that a flaw? She didn't answer. She just walked away. Then came the next blow. She vanished for an entire weekend. No texts. No updates. Came back Sunday night with her arms full of shopping bags, Nordstrom, Saks, boutiques I didn't even recognize. I stood in the kitchen, staring as she breezed past me like I wasn't even there. Another $1,950, gone in less than 2 weeks. And then, after the tattoo incident, I started watching the credit card statements more closely. Her card, the one tied to our shared account, was nearly maxed out. $8,400 out of a $10,000 limit. The charges read like a luxury influencer's weekend. Fancy restaurants, hotel bars, high-end boutiques. Not one conversation about any of it. When I brought it up, she didn't even bother defending herself. Oh my God, she said, rolling her eyes so hard she practically looked inside her skull. Money comes and goes, Dean. We've been obsessed with saving for a future that might never even happen. I'm living in the present, she said, setting down her glass. Then she had the audacity to add, maybe you should try it sometime, instead of being so boring. That night, she casually mentioned she'd be gone next weekend. Leadership retreat, she said, without looking up from her phone. Something in the way she said it, too quick, too smooth, set off every alarm in my head. Where's this retreat? I asked. Aspen, she replied. The company rented a lodge. Thursday through Sunday. I nodded slowly. Seems like a lot of retreats and conferences lately. That made her snap her head up. Her expression hardened. Are you keeping track of my work commitments now? God, Dean, this is exactly why I need space. That was the last straw. That night, after she went into the shower, steam already spilling from beneath the bathroom door, I did something I'd never done before. I checked her phone. Yeah, I know, invasion of privacy, breach of trust, all that. Judge me if you want. But when your life starts to feel like a lie, sometimes your gut speaks louder than your morals. And mine had been screaming for weeks. I waited until the water was running and the door was closed. Her phone was charging on the nightstand. My hands were shaking as I picked it up, but my mind was clear, painfully clear. I opened her messages. That's when the truth finally smacked me in the face. All those nights out, the coworkers and girls' nights? Lies. Every single one of them. The texts weren't from Sarah or Melissa. They were from someone saved as Russell Fire. His messages were filled with winks and late-night plans, compliments about her body, suggestions about what to wear or not wear. It didn't take long to figure out who he was. Her boss. Buried in the text was a screenshot of a hotel reservation, Aspen, a luxury resort suite. $2,680 a night for 3 nights. And the payment? Charged directly to our joint credit card. My stomach dropped. My vision blurred for a second. But I didn't scream. I didn't storm into the bathroom. I put the phone back exactly where it had been before the shower turned off. My heart was racing, but my thoughts had never been more focused. She wanted to be an independent girl so badly? Then fine. Maybe it was time I gave her exactly what she claimed to want, complete independence. From me. From this house. From our marriage. And from the bank account she seemed to think was her personal playground. But I didn't confront her that night. I needed time to think. To plan. This wasn't just a betrayal of the heart anymore. This was financial infidelity. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was using our money to fund the affair. And doing it with the arrogance of someone who thought she'd never be caught. That weekend, I sat at my desk for hours, going through every statement from the last 6 months. What I found made me physically ill. She'd opened 3 credit cards in her name without telling me. Took out cash advances. Maxed them all out. Then, the part that truly twisted the knife. She made minimum payments on those cards using money from our joint checking account. She'd been shopping like a woman possessed. Thousands of dollars on clothes, jewelry, dinners, spa days, and hotel rooms. So many hotel rooms. Places I'd never been. Places we'd never talked about. Places she didn't even bother hiding. By the time I finished adding it all up, I estimated she'd spent over $30,000 in just half a year. On her affair. On her new chapter. On becoming someone I didn't recognize. That was our money. Our future. I'd worked overtime to build that savings. Skipped trips. Held off on replacing my old car. Also, we could have security. A foundation. Over the next few weeks, I became a ghost in my own house. A silent observer to a marriage unraveling at the seams. The woman who used to make Sunday pancakes and read the newspaper with me now barely looked at me, let alone spoke. Her wardrobe changed like clockwork, modest sweaters replaced with tight designer dresses. Practical jeans gave way to skirts I'd never seen before. Necklines dropped lower. Hemlines rose. Our once shared closet was now crowded with shopping bags, most of them unopened. Price tags still attached. One blouse. $430. I saw the tag still dangling from the sleeve, tucked behind the closet door like she didn't even care anymore. Or maybe she wanted me to see it. Hard to tell at this point. The broker notifications kept lighting up my phone, small withdrawals, then bigger ones. Steady. Aggressive. It was like watching a slow bleed. The more I paid attention, the more I started connecting the dots. Patterns emerged. Her phone, for instance, always face down. Never left unattended. Her lock screen changed weekly. I once reached for it when it buzzed, and she practically snatched it from my hand. Conversations ended the moment I walked into the room. I'd hear whispers, pauses, nervous laughter, then nothing. And her friends? They didn't sound like friends. Melissa and Sarah disappeared. In their place were names I'd never heard. Camila, Dre, Jade. People she suddenly spent so much time with, but never introduced or mentioned before. Even Spencer, our neighbor, a guy I barely spoke to outside of friendly waves or lawn talk, noticed the shift. He caught me one afternoon when I was checking the mailbox. "Hey, Dean, look, I don't want to overstep," he said, glancing around like we were being watched. "But I've seen Jocelyn a couple of times now, coming home with some guy. White Range Rover. Usually late afternoon. When you're at work." My stomach twisted, but I managed to nod. "Thanks, Spencer. I've had my suspicions." He sighed. "Listen, man, I went through something like this with my ex. If you ever need to talk, or, hell, crash somewhere for a night, I'm next door. Anytime." His kindness hit harder than I expected. It had been a lonely few weeks. That night, we were both home, a rare thing lately. She sat across from me at the table, typing rapidly on her phone, barely touching her food. I watched her fingers fly over the screen. I could feel the tension building behind my eyes. I decided to test the waters. "So," I said, keeping my voice casual, "who's this Russell you keep texting?" Her thumbs froze midair. She didn't look up. "Just someone from work," she said after a beat. "Marketing brought him in as the new creative director." "Interesting," I replied, still eating. "You've never mentioned a new director before." She shrugged. "We're expanding. Lots of new faces lately." I nodded, took a sip of water. "Must be nice, driving a white Range Rover as a creative director." Her eyes widened. Just a flicker, but I saw it. She covered it quickly. "I wouldn't know what he drives," she said, voice a touch too forced. "We don't exactly discuss cars." The lie sat between us like an uninvited guest. Thick. Obvious. I didn't challenge it. I just nodded and went back to eating, letting her believe she'd dodged something. That night, when she was in bed and the house was quiet, I opened my laptop and logged into our cell phone account. I didn't need her passcode for this one. The call logs were damning. 67 calls to the same number, all during her lunch break or her commute home. But the texts? The count was in the thousands. I sat there, staring at the screen, unable to look away. Then I opened her credit card statements. Weekday charges. Afternoon charges. Boutique hotels scattered across Denver. Dinners. Drinks. Rooms booked in the middle of the day. Times I knew she was working late. Restaurants I'd never been to with her. Even a weekend spa package. I found the charge while combing through last month's statements. During that so-called professional development seminar she swore was mandatory. Turns out, it was mandatory only for her and Russell. A couple's package at a mountain spa resort. Facials, hot stone massage, champagne service, the works. But that wasn't the worst of it. While I was checking the file drawer in the study, the one she used for her freelance paperwork and tax folders, I found something that made my blood run cold. Loan paperwork. A $15,000 personal loan taken out using our house as collateral. Signed, processed, and buried under a pile of old receipts like she'd never meant for me to find it. No conversations. No mentions. Not a word. Our home, our equity, leveraged behind my back. This wasn't just an affair anymore. It was fraud. Systematic deception. Calculated betrayal. It was time to protect myself. The next day, I called Mitch. My voice was steady, but my insides felt like they were boiling. "Remember how you mentioned your cousin's situation?" I asked. "I think I need the name of his lawyer." He didn't even hesitate. "I'll text it to you." That next morning, I didn't wait any longer. We were both in the kitchen. She was sitting at the island, scrolling through her phone, thumbs flying, nails gleaming, freshly manicured, of course. Probably another $150 gone. I placed my coffee on the counter, took a deep breath. "We need to talk about what's happening." She didn't even look up. "What about it?" "You're having an affair with Russell." No flinch. No shock. Just mild annoyance, like I'd interrupted her favorite show. "God damn, you're so dramatic," she said, still tapping away. "This is exactly why I needed changes. You're suffocating me with your boring life and control issues. Control issues. I almost laughed. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. Control issues? I gave you everything. Freedom with our money, freedom with your time. And this is how you repay that trust? You're taking out loans against our house now. Her head snapped up, eyes flashing. You went through my things. That's private. I stared at her. Apparently, everything's private now, except our bank account, which you treat like your own personal ATM. She stood, slowly, one hand lifting to touch that stupid tattoo again, like it meant something deep. You've never understood what independence really means, she said coldly. I'm an independent girl now. That doesn't fit into your neat little spreadsheets and retirement plans. Independence doesn't mean stealing from your husband, I said quietly. She grabbed her coat and that ridiculous $1,200 Gucci purse, another new addition I hadn't noticed until today. Probably bought on one of the mystery shopping sprees. I don't have time for this conversation, she said, slinging the purse over her shoulder. I'm meeting friends for brunch. On a Wednesday? I asked. Don't you have work? She gave me a look like I was the one being unreasonable. I took a mental health day. Not that I need to explain myself to you. She headed for the door, heels clicking. Then she paused and glanced back over her shoulder. Don't wait up. We're going to this new club downtown after. And just like that, she was gone. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time after she left, staring at the steam rising from my untouched coffee. My fingers wrapped around the mug, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. Was this really happening? How had we gone from Sunday pancakes and backyard barbecues to this? A woman I didn't recognize spending our future like it was pocket change. That evening, just as the sun was dipping below the rooftops, my phone buzzed. A message from Spencer. White Range Rover at the Ritz-Carlton downtown. Thought you should know. That's all Spencer's text said. No other details. None were needed. I knew exactly what it meant. I sat in my car for almost an hour, parked a few blocks from the Ritz-Carlton, fingers clenched around the steering wheel, debating whether to go, whether I needed to see it for myself. Eventually, I turned the key and drove. And there it was, the White Range Rover, front and center in the valet zone, like it belonged there. Through the massive lobby windows, I spotted her instantly. Jocelyn. My wife. She sat at the hotel bar with a tall man, slicked back hair, designer watch glinting under the pendant lights, that arrogant lean some men get when they think they've won something. His hand was on her thigh. I didn't storm in. I didn't shout. I didn't make a scene. I pulled out my phone and took photos. Several. Clear, damning, time-stamped. Then I turned around, walked back to my car, and drove to a nearby coffee shop. Sat in the back corner, ordered the darkest roast they had, and pulled up Google. Best divorce attorneys in Denver. Charlotte Mason name came up first, with reviews that used words like lethal, no nonsense, and pit bull. When Jocelyn came home that night, it was well past 1 a.m. She reeked of expensive perfume, but underneath it, there was something else. Something faint, but unmistakable. I was in bed, back turned, breathing steady. Eyes closed. You awake? She whispered as she slid under the sheets. I didn't respond. Didn't flinch. I just lay there, silent, my mind racing through numbers, but this time, not our 401k projections or mortgage amortizations. I was calculating how to destroy her without destroying myself. That tattoo of hers, independent girl, was about to become the most expensive mistake she'd ever made. The next morning, I called Charlotte Mason. Her consultation fee was $500 for a single hour. It was the best money I've ever spent. After I laid everything out, the affair, the financial betrayal, the lies, she didn't flinch. Based on what you've told me, Charlotte said, adjusting her glasses, you have grounds for divorce. Adultery and financial misconduct. But if you want the best outcome, we need to be strategic. She leaned forward, voice low and sharp. Don't confront her again. Don't let her know you're planning anything. Keep gathering evidence, but don't alert her. Not yet. I want to protect what's mine, I said. She's already taken enough. Charlotte's smile was like ice. Then let's make sure she doesn't take anything else. That weekend, she dropped another bomb over breakfast. I'm hosting a dinner party here tomorrow night, she said, not even looking up from her phone. I looked up from my newspaper, folding it halfway. A dinner party? Since when do you cook or host anything on Sunday nights? She gave a snort, not even bothering to hide the smugness. Not me cooking, obviously. I hired a caterer. Just some friends from my new social circle. She stirred her coffee without looking at me. You should probably find somewhere else to be, she said casually. You won't enjoy it. The audacity nearly knocked the breath out of me. You're asking me to leave my own house, I said slowly, so you can throw a party with people I've never even met? She rolled her eyes, exaggerated, dramatic, like I was a child who just didn't get it. This is exactly why I need space, she snapped. Everything's a negotiation with you. It's exhausting being married to someone so ordinary. That word, ordinary. It shouldn't have hit as hard as it did. But after 12 years, after all we'd been through, all we'd built, that's what I was to her now. Ordinary. I folded my newspaper carefully, slowly, and looked at her with a calm I didn't even feel. Fine. Have your party, I said. I'll be upstairs in my office. Her eyes flicked up at me, surprised. She had clearly expected a fight. The fact that she didn't get one said everything about her real intentions for this little gathering. By Sunday evening, I was ready. I texted Charlotte. Plan in motion. She's hosting him and friends at our house tonight. I'm documenting everything. She responded instantly. Perfect. Get photos if possible, but don't confront them yet. Around 7 p.m., the doorbell started ringing, and it didn't stop. I listened from upstairs as laughter echoed through the halls. Heels clicked on our hardwood floors, and music started thumping low through the floorboards. I stayed at my desk, reviewing statements, logging new charges, messaging Charlotte about next steps. But every beat of that bass below reminded me. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a celebration of it. In my house. By midnight, the noise became unbearable. The walls shook with bass, and I could hear people shouting over the music. I got up. Slowly, deliberately. When I walked downstairs, I didn't recognize my own living room. Furniture had been shoved against the walls, champagne bottles, Dom Perignon, of course, littered every surface. A team of caterers stood huddled near the kitchen, clearly uncomfortable, unsure whether they should stay or run. And there she was, Jocelyn, dead center of the chaos, dancing like she was on stage, wrapped up in Russell's arms. He was unmistakable, tall, smug, slicked back hair, that designer watch catching the light with every movement. His hands were everywhere. She laughed, tossing her hair, proudly flashing that independent girl tattoo in a backless dress that probably cost more than my car payment. She didn't see me. None of them did. I stood in the stairwell, quietly recording everything with my phone. Documentation. Evidence. And then, someone bumped into the coffee table and knocked over a full glass of red wine. It splashed, like blood, across our white sofa. The sofa, the one we'd saved 6 months to afford. The one she swore was worth the splurge. That was it. My line. My limit. I walked in, straight to the speaker system, and yanked the Bluetooth connection. The music died with a harsh electronic screech. Then I flipped on every light in the room. Party's over, I said, voice low but sharp. Everyone out. The room fell silent. Jocelyn pushed through the thinning crowd, face flushed red with anger and maybe a little fear. What the hell do you think you're doing? She snapped. I kept my tone even, calm, far more composed than I felt. Protecting what's left of our home, I said. Everyone needs to leave. Now, her friends, or whatever you want to call that collection of barely coherent partygoers, shifted awkwardly, glancing at each other, avoiding my eyes as they started to file toward the door. Some mumbled excuses. Others just slipped out silently, clutching their coats and heels like guilty teenagers. Only Russell remained, standing behind her, one hand resting possessively on the small of her back like he had some kind of claim. You should introduce us, I said, looking directly at Jocelyn. Since you've been spending so much time together. She crossed her arms and rolled her eyes like a teenager caught sneaking out. This is ridiculous. You're embarrassing me in front of everyone. I tilted my head. I'm embarrassing you? That's rich, coming from the woman who turned our living room into a frat house and was dancing inappropriately with her boss just feet away from the sofa we spent 6 months saving for. Russell finally opened his mouth. His voice was smooth, like someone used to talking his way out of things. Look, man, this is between you two. I'll head out. Smart decision, I said, my gaze never leaving Jocelyn's face. As he passed me, I leaned in just slightly and said under my breath, by the way, Samantha says hello. His step hitched. Just a half second, but I saw it. He didn't look back. Just kept walking, faster now. I smiled to myself. Gotcha. Samantha, his wife, hadn't been easy to find, but once I did, the rest had unraveled fast. As the door closed behind him, Jocelyn exploded. How dare you, she shouted. I told you to make yourself scarce tonight. I slowly looked around the room, the spilled wine on the white couch, the crushed champagne flutes, the catering trays knocked sideways. This is my house too, I said. A house I pay 85% of the mortgage on, by the way. She scoffed, arms flailing as she turned in a circle. It's just a damn couch, Dean. God, you're so materialistic and pathetic. I laughed, dry and humorless. Materialistic? That's a bold accusation from someone who spent nearly 12 grand on clothes in the past month alone, and took out a loan against our house without telling me. Her eyes widened. There it was, the hit landing. She hadn't expected me to know. You're spying on me now, she hissed. I'm protecting what I've worked 15 years to build. I said firmly. There's a difference. Or have you forgotten that we share finances? She stormed toward the stairs, heels clicking furiously, but she couldn't resist turning back at the bottom step. This is why I need to be independent from you, she shouted. You count every penny, track my every move. It's controlling and creepy. I shook my head. What's creepy is treating your husband like an ATM while screwing your boss. She froze mid-step. Her hand tightened on the railing. You don't know what you're talking about. Sweetheart, I said, voice low even. 11:20 p.m. at the Ritz. For times. Just last week. The spa weekend in Vail. Last month. The Venmo payments from his personal account to yours. Want me to keep going? The color drained from her face like someone pulled the plug. You've been following me, she said, her voice suddenly small. I looked her right in the eye and said quietly, I didn't have to. The credit card statements and your carelessness tell quite a story, I said, my voice flat. No emotion left to bleed out. She blinked, but only for a second. Shock quickly gave way to something far more familiar now, entitlement. Fine, she said, chin tilted high. Yes, Russell and I have been seeing each other. He gets me in ways you never could. He's ambitious, exciting, everything you're not. How considerate of you, I said, folding my arms, to compare us so directly. Does his wife know? That caught her. A flicker of something real, fear, confusion, crossed her face. How did you? Unlike you, I said, stepping a little closer, voice calm and cutting. I actually do my research. Called his company. His wife Samantha is listed as co-owner. Lovely woman, when I spoke to her yesterday. Very interested in the photos I have. Her eyes widened. Her mouth opened, but for once, no words came out. You what? She finally shrieked, her voice going high and sharp. Our marriage has been dead for months, she spat. You're just too self-absorbed to have an honest conversation about it. I approached slowly, every step deliberate. Oh, I've noticed everything. The lies. The missing money. The late nights. The perfume. The tattoos. The bullshit leadership retreats. Then I added, with cool finality, and you know what? I've made some plans of my own. Something in my voice must have struck her. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I saw it. Fear. Her arms dropped slightly. What does that mean? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. It means that independent girl is about to learn what true independence feels like. Because nothing comes without cost. Not that tattoo. Not those hotel rooms with your married boss. And certainly not betraying someone who trusted you with everything. That night, I slept in the guest room. I could hear her through the walls, pacing, whispering frantically into the phone. It was her turn to feel unstable, uncertain. I let it settle around me like a blanket. Before I went to sleep, I sent a final message to Charlotte. Confrontation happened. She admitted the affair. Plans still on for this weekend. Her reply came fast. Perfect. Rest up. The real work begins Friday. The next morning, before heading to work, I checked the joint account. Another $3,200 withdrawal. But instead of rage, I felt satisfaction. I'd been watching the pattern. Every Monday morning like clockwork, a large withdrawal. Combine that with snippets I'd overheard, her talking to someone about flights, passport ready, Ocean View Suite, and I knew. Cabo. The leadership retreat she'd conveniently mentioned weeks ago. Perfect. I called Charlotte from the car. It's time, I said. She'll be gone this weekend. We'll have 72 hours. The week leading up to her little beach escape became my strategic planning phase. While she packed bikinis and summer dresses, smiling into her phone and humming to herself like she was starring in some rom-com, I executed the most carefully orchestrated plan of my life. Every night after she fell asleep, passed out, really, with her phone clutched to her chest like some talisman, I'd quietly close the door to my office and get to work. I called it Operation Independence in my mind. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about reclaiming my peace, my dignity, my life. First stop, Charlotte's office downtown. I sat across from her at a long glass table while she sorted through everything I'd brought, bank statements, screenshots of messages, photos of hotel receipts, and most damning of all, the paperwork showing Jocelyn had taken out a $15,000 loan using our house as collateral without even telling me. Charlotte moved with clinical precision, flipping pages, highlighting sections, organizing evidence into color-coded folders. The infidelity is clearly established, she said, barely looking up. And the financial misconduct is substantial. She paused, looked me square in the eye. What exactly are you hoping to achieve? I didn't hesitate. Justice. I want to keep what I've earned while she was out there destroying our marriage. And I want her to feel, really feel, the panic of true independence. Charlotte nodded slowly, approvingly. Given these circumstances, we can file for divorce citing adultery and financial fraud. You'll want to secure your assets immediately. Is there anything else I should know? I told her about the trip, how Jocelyn would be flying out Friday and wouldn't return until Monday night. Charlotte leaned forward, hands steepled. Perfect timing. I'll have everything ready by Thursday, she said. But understand, once we start this, there's no turning back. Are you prepared for that? I didn't blink. I've never been more certain of anything. Next stop, the bank. I met with a financial advisor named Malcolm. He was a quiet, thoughtful man in his late 50s with reading glasses perched on the end of his nose and the calm demeanor of someone who's seen far too many couples burn their lives down over money. We created a new individual account at a different institution. Together, we combed through our savings contributions, my salary deposits, her withdrawals, the timelines of transfers. It was clear where the imbalance lay. I'll transfer my portion on Friday morning, I said. Not a penny more, not a penny less. Malcolm looked up. The joint account will remain open, but frozen from further withdrawals. He raised an eyebrow. This is unusual. Most people in your position empty accounts completely. I shrugged. I'm not most people. I want this done legally. By the book. No surprises. No loopholes. He nodded, tapping in some final figures. Understood. My third meeting was with a real estate agent. A furnished one-bedroom condo in a secure building downtown. Clean lines. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Just enough space for what I needed and nothing I didn't. I paid the security deposit and first month's rent out of my personal savings. The movers were scheduled for Saturday morning. Only essentials. The rest of it, our life, she could keep. Or watch crumble. I no longer cared. My fourth meeting was with Samantha. I reached out through the contact listed on the corporate website. She replied quickly, inviting me to a quiet cafe near City Park. She showed up right on time, shoulders squared, eyes calm, wedding band still on her finger like a weight she hadn't figured out how to let go of yet. I didn't waste time. I laid everything out on the table, photos, text threads, hotel bills, a full timeline. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared at the evidence for a long moment, and then said quietly, I've suspected for months. He's done this before, Samantha said, her voice low but firm. But this time, he's not walking away with half my company. We sat in that quiet cafe, two strangers bound by betrayal, and began crafting a coordinated plan. Her attorney would file for divorce on Monday, the same day Charlotte would file mine. A synchronized strike. Throughout the entire process, Jocelyn remained completely oblivious, so wrapped up in her affair and her little beach fantasy that she never noticed the shift. If she wondered why I suddenly stopped confronting her about her late nights, the ridiculous spending, or the constant secrecy, she never said. Maybe she thought I'd finally accepted my place as the quiet, predictable husband. Maybe she thought she'd won. Thursday night, while she packed upstairs, singing to herself, throwing dresses and bikinis into her luggage like a teenager headed for spring break, I went through my checklist one last time. First, the divorce papers, already filed with the court, scheduled for service the moment she landed back in Colorado. Second, the lease on my new condo, signed, paid, and the keys already in my pocket. Third, the movers, scheduled for early Saturday, just hours after she'd be sipping overpriced cocktails in Cabo. Fourth, the locksmith, booked for Saturday afternoon. She'd return Monday to find her key useless. Fifth, all utilities, gas, electric, water, trash, transferred to her name. Each required new deposits. That'd be a fun surprise. Sixth, the restraining order. Charlotte had drafted it, citing her erratic behavior, the financial deception, and witness statements from Spencer and another neighbor. It would be filed if she tried anything crazy. Seventh, the financial split. I documented every dollar. My half, minus every unauthorized purchase and loan, would be legally transferred to my private account Friday morning. Eighth, the credit card companies, notified. My name removed from every shared card. All frozen, pending investigation of fraud. That night, she came to bed late again, reeking of that same damn perfume, like roses dipped in arrogance. I kept my breathing steady, feigning sleep as she climbed in beside me, tossed her phone on the nightstand, and eventually drifted off. Once I was sure she was out cold, I reached for the phone, hands practiced and calm. The final confirmation was there. Texts between her and Russell. Their plans were locked in. Cabo, a beachfront resort. $790 a night for 3 nights, all billed to our joint account. Friday morning, I woke early and made her favorite, Eggs Benedict, just the way she liked it. Fresh squeezed orange juice. Everything plated perfectly. I even put on soft jazz like I used to on slow Sunday mornings, before she decided mediocrity was a prison. She padded into the kitchen, still in her robe, blinking at the table like she'd stepped into the wrong house. You seem happy, she said, cautious, suspicious. I smiled warmly. Just looking forward to a quiet weekend. Sometimes space is good for both people. She tilted her head, studying me. maybe wondering if I knew, if this was some kind of trap. But her ego won out. She blinked it away and moved on. Well, the team and I will probably be in meetings most of the time. Very boring leadership stuff, she said, grabbing a fork. Have fun. I replied, my tone light as I helped her roll her suitcase to the car. Drive safely to the airport. She gave me a tight-lipped smile and climbed in. As she pulled away, I stood in the driveway, waving. The moment her car turned the corner and disappeared from view, I pulled out my phone and made the first call. She's gone, I said simply. Let's begin. The next 72 hours unfolded like a military operation. Every step was precise, documented, deliberate. By noon Friday, I transferred exactly 50% of our joint savings into my new individual account, minus the $28,000 she drained over the last 6 months without my knowledge or consent. Not a dollar more, not a dollar less. The transaction record, clean and legal, would hold up in any courtroom. I left her share untouched, but I froze the joint account immediately to prevent any more impulsive withdrawals while she sunbathed with her married boyfriend in Cabo. Then came the credit cards. I called each company, one by one, and removed myself as an authorized user on her cards. For the ones where I was the primary holder, I closed them entirely. I explained the situation each time, pending divorce, financial misconduct, legal separation. No one argued. In fact, some of the reps offered condolences. Next, I contacted every utility company, insurance provider, and subscription service tied to our life together. Electric, gas, water, garbage, internet, Netflix, Spotify, you name it. I switched the payment methods to her card, changed the contact information to her email, and logged out. Clean cut. No confusion later. I even removed her from my life insurance policy, updating the beneficiary to my sister. It felt strange, cold even, but necessary. Then, I took the most precautionary step of all. I contacted the credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, and placed a fraud alert on my social security number. With the way she'd been racking up debt behind my back, I wasn't going to risk her opening more accounts in my name. And through it all, I didn't feel rage. Not bitterness. Just satisfaction. Every email I sent, every form I signed, every account I updated, it all chipped away at the shell of the marriage that had suffocated me for too long. I wasn't just reclaiming money or property. I was reclaiming myself. Saturday morning, the movers showed up right on time, 8 a.m. sharp. I greeted them at the door with coffee and a clipboard. I'd packed everything ahead of time, essentials only. Clothes, personal documents, the few family heirlooms my grandmother left me. No joint property. No items with disputed origin. I documented everything, video footage, time-stamped photos, inventory lists. If she wanted to argue later, the evidence was already waiting in a secure cloud folder. By afternoon, the locksmith arrived. He was quick, polite, and didn't ask questions. While he changed out the deadbolts, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote a letter. Not a cruel one, just detailed. Calm. It explained where she could find her new house keys, not from me, or friends, or her precious Russell, but at Charlotte's office, where she would also be served her divorce papers. Sunday, I moved into my new place. The condo was smaller, quieter, but it felt clean, honest. I spent the day setting up, organizing, even hanging a few framed photos I hadn't touched in years. I made a pot of chili, poured a beer, and sat on the balcony as the sun set behind the Denver skyline. For the first time in months, my phone wasn't blowing up with account alerts. But I wasn't done yet. I picked up the phone and made a few more calls to contacts I'd kept warm at competing firms. I'd been loyal to my company for 15 years, but it was time for a fresh start. A new life demanded a new landscape. And finally, Monday morning arrived. Samantha and I had stayed in touch throughout the weekend, syncing our timelines. Everything had to happen simultaneously. And it did. As I filed my finalized paperwork with Charlotte, Samantha executed the final phase of our plan on her end. She filed for divorce from Russell, freezing their joint business assets in the process. She also sent documentation to their company's board of directors about the misuse of company funds. Russell had been charging some of their hotel stays, private escapades, with my wife, to the business account. Stupid, arrogant, sloppy, but useful. Very useful. Around 7 o'clock that evening, my phone began to vibrate incessantly. I didn't even need to look. I could already picture the scene unfolding. Jocelyn, tired from travel, rolling her suitcase to the front door and fumbling for her key. The lock doesn't turn. Confused, then angry, calling her mom in a panic. Her mom, already informed, redirects her to Charlotte's office downtown, where she receives the full weight of reality. The calls didn't stop. Voicemail after voicemail. Ping after ping. Her voice growing more frantic with each new message. What the hell, Dean? Call me now. Did you seriously change the locks? Are you insane? Where's all our money? The accounts are frozen. My credit cards aren't working. I couldn't even buy gas. The electric company says I need to pay a $500 deposit just to keep the lights on. My car insurance got canceled. I just got pulled over for an expired tag. Russell's wife knows everything. He's backing away. What did you do? HR called me in for a meeting tomorrow morning. Dean, please. Just talk to me. Do something. Help me. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Instead, I sent one message to Charlotte. She's making contact. Proceed as planned. I turned my phone face down and went back to making dinner. A quiet evening alone, just how I liked it. 2 days later, I finally picked up when her name flashed across my screen. Her voice was hoarse, brittle, cracked from crying, completely drained of the confidence and smug independence she'd worn like armor just a week ago. Dean, please. I made a terrible mistake, she whimpered. I'm so sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't interrupt. I let the silence stretch until it hurt. You were thinking you were an independent girl, I said finally, calm as ever. Well, now you are. Please, she begged. I've been fired. Russell's wife is suing him. Our credit cards are maxed out. I can't even pay the mortgage this month. I exhaled slowly. Sounds like independent adult problems to me, I said. Best of luck with those. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I need help. I have nowhere to go. You have the house, I replied. For now, anyway. At least until the bank forecloses. That unauthorized loan you took out? It'll catch up. Should take a few months, though. Can we just talk? She pleaded. Please. I'll do anything to fix this. There's nothing to fix, I said, cold and final. The papers explain everything. You get exactly what you put into our marriage, which, after calculating your spending versus your contributions, comes to approximately $42,000. But I'm generously waiving that debt, I added flatly. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, ragged and shaky. Dean, please. I love you. This was all a mistake. No, Jocelyn, I said, keeping my voice even. The mistake was mine, thinking you were a partner, when really, you were just looking for a sponsor. I waited for her to respond, but there was only silence. I gave her one final gift. Enjoy your independence, I said. I hear Starbucks is hiring. Then I hung up, blocked her number, and exhaled, not with relief, yet, but with certainty. A week later, her sister Melody called me, voice cracking with tears. She's a mess, Dean, she sobbed. She's sleeping on my couch. She cries all night. Russell completely abandoned her. She's broke and broken. Can you at least talk to her? I didn't hesitate. I talked to her for 12 years, I said calmly. She wasn't interested then. Now, I'm not interested. But she's really sorry, Melody pleaded. She made a mistake. I almost laughed. No, Melody. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. What Jocelyn did. That was thousands of deliberate choices. Betraying me. Stealing from me. Humiliating someone who stood by her for over a decade. That's not a mistake. That's her character. There was a pause. I could hear her trying to swallow whatever protest was forming. She's lost everything, Dean. Her job, her house. Her credit's wrecked. She had to sell all those designer clothes and handbags for pennies. She's working as a waitress now. I didn't flinch. Sounds like she's finally experiencing the independence she wanted, I said. I'm not her safety net anymore. You're heartless. Melody snapped. Her grief suddenly sharpened into anger. No, I said, calm and sure. I just finally learned to value myself. Maybe Jocelyn will learn that lesson, too. 6 months passed. The divorce was finalized faster than I anticipated, mostly thanks to Charlotte's relentless focus and the sheer volume of evidence we'd stacked against Jocelyn. After her early attempts to reconcile fell flat, she didn't bother contesting anything. I think, deep down, she just wanted it to be over. I didn't care either way. From mutual friends, I heard dribs and drabs about her life. Moved back in with her parents at 38. Working double shifts, waitressing during the day, bartending at night. The house we bought together? Foreclosed, thanks to that loan she took behind my back. Her credit score? A smoking crater. Russell? Gone. Ghosted her after Samantha filed for divorce and forced him out of the company. The infamous independent girl tattoo had apparently become a bitter joke. I heard she'd tried to start laser removal but couldn't afford the treatments. The irony didn't escape anyone. Me? I was thriving. I'd taken a new position at a competing firm. 30% salary increase. More respect. A better view, literally. My downtown condo had these massive windows that opened to the Rockies, and every morning I'd sip my coffee with the mountains stretched out in front of me like a promise. I'd started rock climbing again, something I'd shelved for years. I joined a hiking group. Met people. Real people. I'd made new friends. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely free. One Saturday morning, about 8 months after everything had unraveled, I was grabbing coffee at a local cafe I'd recently discovered. It had this warm, rustic vibe, wooden beams, local art on the walls, and real ceramic mugs instead of paper cups. I was waiting on my Americano when I heard someone call my name. Dean. I turned slowly. The voice was familiar, but fainter than I remembered. And there she was. Jocelyn. She stood a few feet away in a faded black waitress uniform, tray tucked under her arm. The designer labels were gone, replaced by comfortable shoes and plain work pants. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No curls, no glossy highlights. Her makeup was minimal. She looked ordinary. Just a woman in her late 30s, working a shift. The only thing that remained from her transformation was the tattoo peeking out just above her collar. The same tattoo she once flaunted like a declaration of freedom. Now it just looked out of place. Jocelyn. I said with a nod, keeping my tone neutral. Didn't expect to see you here. She smiled faintly, eyes dropping to the floor. I work weekends. Double shifts. How are you? I asked. It felt automatic. She gave a weak laugh, the kind that carries more weight than amusement. Do you really want to know? I paused, considering. Did I? A part of me wanted to walk out, let the past stay buried. But there was still curiosity, maybe closure. Sure, I said, gesturing toward a small, empty table near the window. I've got a few minutes. We sat down. The silence between us was thick at first. She fidgeted with the edge of her apron. I stirred my coffee. It was surreal. Sitting across from someone who had once been my entire world, and now felt like a stranger wearing her face. I'm sorry, she said finally. Her voice was barely audible. For everything. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I am truly sorry. I nodded once. What happened, Jocelyn? I asked quietly. I mean, really happened. Not the midlife crisis stuff. What was going through your head? She stared into her coffee like it could offer answers. I don't know if I can explain it in a way that makes sense, she said. I was turning 40. I was scared. I started thinking about what my life had become, and it felt small. Boring. I felt invisible. Then Russell started paying attention to me at work. Flirting. Complimenting me. He made me feel like I mattered. She exhaled slowly. He talked about a life we could have together. A new business, freedom, travel. It sounded exciting. I got caught up in the fantasy. And the spending, the loan on the house, she winced. Russell had expensive tastes. I thought if I looked the part, if I was glamorous and bold, he'd choose me. Permanently. He kept saying he was going to leave Samantha. She laughed bitterly, shaking her head. I was so stupid. Yes, I said, my voice calm. You were. She blinked, stung, but nodded in agreement. But that's not why I left, Jocelyn. I continued, holding her gaze. I left because you were cruel. You belittled me. I said, my voice even but firm. You mocked our life together. Called me boring. Ordinary. You treated me like I was nothing. Tears welled in her eyes. And for once, she didn't try to blink them away. I know, she whispered. I told myself those things to justify what I was doing. If I made you the villain, I could be the victim who deserved happiness. It was easier than admitting I was destroying something good for a fantasy. We sat in silence for a moment. I stared at the coffee growing cold in my cup, steam long gone. She fiddled with a sugar packet, her hands shaking just slightly. How are your parents? I asked finally, needing a break from the heavy stuff. She sighed. They're supportive. Disappointed, but supportive. I'm staying with them for now. I'm saving up for my own place. Should have enough for a security deposit in another few months. I nodded. And the tattoo? I asked, with a slight tilt of my head toward her collar. Without thinking, she reached up and touched her collarbone. A permanent reminder of the biggest mistake of my life, she said quietly. I'm saving up to have it removed, but it's expensive. Well, I said, standing and gathering my things, I should get going. I've got a climbing session at 10. You're rock climbing now. Her eyebrows lifted. She looked genuinely surprised. Turns out I'm not as boring and ordinary as you thought. I replied, a small smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. Take care of yourself, Jocelyn. As I turned toward the door, she called after me. Dean, do you think you could ever forgive me? I paused at the threshold, her voice echoing faintly behind me. I considered the question carefully. Did I hate her? No, not anymore. I'd done my grieving. I'd done the work. I'd moved on. I already have, I said finally, without turning around. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Some things, once broken, can't be put back together. She nodded slowly, wiping away a tear. I understand. Thank you for talking to me. I walked out into the bright Colorado sunshine, blinking at the light like I was stepping out of a cave. And in some ways I was. The anger that had driven me through those dark months had faded, replaced by something more valuable, indifference. She no longer had any power over me. Not her words. Not her choices. Not her regret. My phone buzzed just as I reached the car. A text from Lila, a woman from my hiking group I'd been seeing for a few weeks. Still on for the trail tomorrow? Weather looks perfect. I smiled, thumbs tapping quickly. Absolutely. Can't wait. As I drove home, I thought about Jocelyn's tattoo. Independent girl. The irony of it all. In trying to find independence through another man and a mountain of material things, she'd lost everything. And me? I had found true independence. Not through revenge. Not through anger. But through self-respect. Through building something new. Free from a marriage that had turned toxic. Free from someone who didn't value me. Free to build a life that was authentically mine. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.